Watching films like this one reminds me why I love film so much. Welcome to Dani'S Deep Dives, where we geek out about films. In order to fully understand this movie to its fullest capacity, we have to talk about what this movie is about. This movie uses real-life struggles of the Black community, and unfortunately, I would have to make a whole other video just to list a tiny bit of the amount that the Black community has gone through throughout our history. But some things include things like racist pseudoscience, enslavement, historical erasure, systemic oppression, institutionalized racism, and generally just being treated as subhuman. The subject that mostly relates to this film is institutionalized racism. This is what we're going to be really diving deep into. And also, side note, when talking about a community that is not your own, I want to come about it very respectfully, and I never want to send a wrong message for a community that I'm not part of. The goal here is simply to amplify this message because I found it very moving. So please, by any means, feel free to correct me in the comments. Feel free to reach out if there's anything that I could have said different. If you agree or disagree with some of these things, I would love to have an open discussion about these sort of subjects because it is something that I feel is important to talk about. Let's talk about the characters. The main character is Fontaine, which is played by John Boyega. He was the role of the drug dealer. Yo-Yo was played by Teyonah Parris, and she played the role of the sex worker. Lastly, Slick was played by Jamie Foxx, which was the role of the pimp. Together, it already made for a very interesting story. From what I've read, the reviews on it, people were immediately engaged because of the roles that each of those three characters played. Costume design in this was immaculate. It was very 70s, 90s, 2000s influenced, and we can see this in an interview with Teyonah Parris' character Yo-Yo. The time period isn't really specified. We can assume that it's maybe like a modern 70s sort of vibe because of the costumes, but whenever there's a scene in Teyonah Parris' character Yo-Yo, we can see in her childhood room there's a poster of Barack Obama, so it has to be somewhat in present time. That was a really cool concept. I personally loved Yo-Yo's wardrobe. I thought pairing her with a mustard fur coat with teal lipstick and yellow thigh-high chap belt boots. It was so extra and exactly what her character needed to embody. One thing I love about movies is intentional wardrobe. As we saw in Frankenstein, they were very intentional about how they put colors on characters and how they dressed them. This movie did exactly that in their own way, and I loved it. I loved all the character wardrobes. Slick's wardrobe was inspired by Youngblood Priest from Superfly. As soon as I saw Slick's wardrobe, I was like, that looks really familiar. That's definitely a reference to something. And the cinematic shots, oh my god, I was in love with every single shot. I kid you not. The movement shot of Fontaine getting up from his bed was so cool. I loved how they shot that. I loved all the neon lights. And they also did a very good job at capturing emotions with those shots. And the music was top tier. And my favorite Easter egg is that the Erykah Badu re-recorded Tyrone for this movie. They changed the lyrics just slightly to allude to mind control, which is genius. To get an artist like Erykah Badu to re-record a song like that. And I love that they slipped in music into the characters' scenes. For example, in one of Slick's scenes, in the background, you can hear Cheryl's Saturday Love, which perfectly fits the theme of the perpetual loop of the characters' lives. Brilliant. That's so brilliant. I think my favorite music fact about this film is the fact that music editors used Morse code in one of the scenes. So badass. In the scene where they're being surrounded by a crowd of people in the car, they use what's called subaural frequency to say everybody stop and surround them. Stop and subdue. Then when the crowd of people are free from this trance, the Morse code frequency changes to carry on. That is so cool to me. I love when people incorporate different types of techniques into music. Coding in general, I think coding is like one of the coolest things. The Morse code in music is genius. It's very important for us to feel uncomfortable and listen to people when they're trying to convey something difficult. This is brilliant because movies have always conveyed messages. Some people may not pick them up, others pick them up immediately, especially if they're from their own community. But either way, the message is out there. In this film, we learn that there's scientists that are government funded, government approved to conduct experiments on a marginalized community, a project community named the Glen, aka redlining. The way that they use it in this film is was brilliant because they showed it without actually telling you. In these red line neighborhoods, there's things such as restaurants that purposely serve unhealthy food, which is something that we see in real life, to keep the citizens, people in that neighborhood, unhealthy. Lack of resources. There's only like one supermarket or a corner store that sells alcohol, cigarettes, stuff that keeps people down. They purposely want you to stay down. They plant those seeds for people on purpose. There is a purpose behind every single thing that they put in that neighborhood. The scientist reveals that there's two choices: annihilation or assimilation, which is why they use a lot of satire products in this film, such as fried chicken, grape drink, and hair relaxer. They use these products to then whitewash them, for lack of a better term, and they use these products to make them into a less problematic and more controlled community, which definitely imitates life. In the movie, you can see how there's this lady sitting on the chair. She's talking about how she's having to use her own funds to get kids in her classroom supplies. She's obviously very stressed out about this. She is altered by this thing that she has to do that she shouldn't have to do because it should be government funded. As soon as the hair relaxer gets into her hair, she kind of numbs out. She forgets about it. She's like, well, maybe I'm just tripping. That was a genius way, again, to send a message. But that is what happens in a million different ways, especially now. There's things that need to be talked about. There's things that we should definitely be angry about, but we numb ourselves because it's a coping mechanism, because it's easier, because we are protecting our peace, but we're not really protecting anything. We're just kind of letting things happen. There's nothing wrong with taking time for yourself, making sure that you're grounded, taking a break for a little bit to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally. It is a lot to take in, especially with the things that are going on in this world right now. But you have to come back. You always have to show back up. Always show back up for your community and for others. Because if you don't, that is who we become. We become numbed. We become a community that no longer is outspoken. We become controlled. There's a poster at the beginning of the film that says, "Keep them smiling, Soma." And that's a reference to the dystopian novel Brave New World. Soma is a mood-altering drug that's used to control a population into submission or compliance, which is what they're using in all of these products. Another way that they slipped in a detail was when we were in Yo-Yo's room, she picked up this book that said The Hidden Staircase, which is exactly what they needed in order to find the lab where these experiments were being held. And I was actually very shocked that the church headquarters, when they found the elevator, it wasn't a real elevator. They had to use a green screen for that, and they had to shoot at like different angles, and it was like this whole hassle, but it looked super smooth. I loved that scene. Joelle Taylor definitely did such a good job at making a movie that sent a very real message without ever losing it, but making it so understandable and giving us a first look into it. I love directors that can do that. I hope we see more movies like this because I feel like we definitely need movies like this in our society, especially nowadays. My rating for this is definitely 5 stars. I know what you're thinking. You've rated all of your movies that you've reviewed 5 stars. They've been good. They've been so good. If you want to geek out together again, I'm tackling Mickey 17 next week.